Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started. Hey, last episode, I was talking about how we have the ability to control our own mood, right? We can take deliberate action and make deliberate choices to help create and maintain a positive mood for ourselves. And it has to do with that causal chain that I keep talking about. You know, the one that begins with your beliefs, and then your beliefs are generating your thoughts, and your thoughts generate the way you feel, and the way you feel impacts the way you behave or causes your behavior. And we know that this chain isn't just working one way, it also works backwards. So the way you behave can also influence the way you feel, which then influences the way you think, which then influences the way the beliefs that you have. Right? So you can actually consciously manipulate or influence or control two parts of this chain. That is your thoughts and your behaviors. Right? You can choose to think whatever you want to think whenever you want to think it. You can also choose to behave in whatever way you want to behave, whenever you want to behave in that way. Right? Like, you can consciously control your thoughts and your behaviors. And they, in turn, have an impact on your feelings and your beliefs. So your feelings and your beliefs are results, but you can control your feelings and your beliefs indirectly by controlling your thoughts and your behaviors. So this is absolutely true, and this is absolutely proven that this causal chain exists. But this is not to say that there are no other factors that impact and influence our feelings and our beliefs, or even our behaviors and our thoughts, right? For example, if you go into a lab with a brain scientist, brain researcher, they can hook you up, with various electrodes, like place various electrodes all over your scalp, and then send electrical impulses from machines that are sitting out there in the room and stimulate different kinds of mental and emotional experiences. So they press a button and send an electrical impulse down a certain electrode that's placed above a certain area of your brain, and you get this feeling of intense pleasure. They send an electrical impulse down a different electrode, down stuck at a different area over your brain, and you may find yourself having what they even call the God experience, where you feel like you're connected to everything in the universe, all is one, and you have this like deep spiritual experience. And what stimulated it? It was an electrical impulse from a machine that was sent to your brain through that electrode, another wire. It was like completely artificial, But your brain cannot recognize the difference. It can't recognize the difference between when it's stimulated in this kind of artificial way from something outside of yourself versus when you do something internally at the level of your thinking or your behavior to stimulate that response from within your brain. The brain can't tell the difference. So we know just by this example that your feelings, because right now let's talk about positive mood, right? When we're talking about positive mood, and when we're talking about our ability to control our mood, we know that yes, on the one hand, our thoughts and behaviors have a huge impact on our feelings, but our thoughts and behaviors are not the only things that impact our feelings. There can be other things going on at the level of our physiology and even outside of ourselves, like external stimuli from our environment that can stimulate different mental and emotional responses within us. And this is really, really important to understand, because then it lets you know, it helps you to understand also that there are limits to how much we can control our positive mood experience. And sometimes, we can find ourselves in a situation where we're doing everything right in terms of our mental and emotional processes, in terms of, we are thinking all the right thoughts, we are behaving in all the right ways, and doing the best we can to stimulate a positive mood within us. But sometimes it's not enough. Like, your efforts are not sufficient to actually help you create or maintain that positive mood, because there may be something else going on that is having an even stronger impact on your feeling and causing you to have a very different emotional experience than the one that you wish to have. An example of when you may find yourself in a situation like that, other than when you are in a research lab and you are being controlled, your experiences are being controlled by the researchers, is there are definitely certain kinds of mental illnesses that can have that kind of impact on you, right? Mental illnesses that have a physiological cause. You see, and then there's a physiological cause that impacts your emotional experience. But then, so it's result. So the emotional experience is not a result, or at least not a direct result of the way you're thinking and behaving. It's more strongly a direct result of the physiological processes that are going on in your body. And I can speak to you about that from a point of very personal experience, because I've actually suffered from severe depression. And turns out that what I thought was a severe depression was actually only depression-like. It wasn't a true depression, because there was another reason why I was experiencing those feelings, and I just didn't know it at the time. So in my case, what was happening is that I actually have autoimmune disorder that impacts the way that several different glands in my body work. You know, in an autoimmune disorder, there are many, many different manifestations or varieties of autoimmune disorders that you can have. But the one thing that's common among all autoimmune disorders that makes them an autoimmune disorder is that something goes wrong with your immune system, because of which your immune system begins to attack the cells of your own body. Okay? In my case, my immune system started to attack the cells of my body, particularly some of the glands in my body that regulate different hormones in my body. And I was diagnosed with this disorder when I was around 16 years old. And my doctors gave me some information about how this disorder might impact me. And for example, one of the glands that I have in my body that's impacted by this disorder is my thyroid gland, which is responsible for regulating the speed of our metabolism, right? Our metabolism meaning the rate, the speed at which chemical reactions happen in our body. You see? It's insofar as our bodies are like electrochemical machines, you see, the speed at which the different chemical reactions happen in our body has a huge impact on our health and well-being, right? And so my doctors gave me some information about the kinds of impact that they put me on a medication, and then they gave me some information on, if I don't take my medication, this is what can happen to me, including death. They were like, the speed of chemical reactions in your body can slow down so much if you don't take this medication that you can actually die. Okay? So there were certainly some things that I knew, but turns out that there were a lot of other things that can happen with this condition that they did not tell me about. And so what happened in my case was that I got put on these medications. Like there were like at least 3 different medications I had to take on a daily basis. Plus I had to get injections on a monthly basis. Plus I had to, the doctors were like, yeah, you have to come in for regular checkups and get blood tests done every 3 to 6 months and all that kind of stuff. And like I was telling you a few episodes ago, this was like, I was 16 years old. At that point in time, I was like going through a phase in my healing process where I just didn't care about my body. I developed this sort of disassociation with my body, and when I got diagnosed with this condition, and I had to go through all this trouble to take care of it, it turned me off even more. It was like my body is just so much trouble. I just wished it would cease to even exist, so that I didn't have to bother with it. But anyway, I got put on all these medications and stuff, and I started taking the medications. But very soon after I started taking the medications, I started having certain side effects of the medications. And the worst of those side effects were, like, I would get these really horrible migraines that were so debilitating, like I couldn't bear to move. Even like when I was lying in bed and I tried to turn over just to switch positions, it hurt too much to even do that. So I would just be lying in bed as still as possible, trying not to move at all because it hurt to even move at all, and I just couldn't bear the pain. So I would just lie in bed and the pain wouldn't go away. Like it would take 10 hours, 12 hours, sometimes more. It's just like my entire day, like just wasted, just gone. And it wasn't like I was having these migraines every day, but it was a little bit unpredictable. Like I never knew when I would wake up and have this migraine attack, and they got when they were at their most frequent, I was having them like once a week, twice a week, and I just couldn't bear it. It was just like, I just can't take this. So I stopped taking my medication, and I felt better because I wasn't getting the migraines. All the other symptoms that I had been experiencing, because of which, I got taken to the doctors in the first place, like low energy, weight gain, hair loss, a whole bunch of other things I was experiencing. At least none of those things were painful. So I was like, I'd much rather put up with just feeling tired, feeling low energy, even losing my hair. I don't care. At least it's not painful. I'd much rather deal with those symptoms than with these migraines. So I stopped taking my medication. And I actually didn't tell anybody because, at that point I was still going through that phase where I was all into silence. So I didn't tell anybody that I had stopped taking my medication. And I thought actually I was doing fine. Like I found myself struggling again with the energy and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, whatever. It's fine. This is much more preferable for me than the migraines. So I thought I was getting away with it just fine, not taking my medication. And then what happened was that I fell into like this experience of like severe depression. And at that time, when I fell into the severe depression, I didn't really understand what was happening or why it was happening, because for all that I could see, there was no real reason why, no logical reason why I should be feeling so depressed, but I was feeling depressed. The best I could figure out at that time was blame it all on the fact that I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. I was like, maybe this is just part of the suffering, that I have to deal with in my life because of what happened to me, because of the abuse that I went through. And, it's been like, by that point in time, it had been like 8-9 years already. Still hadn't told anyone about what had happened. So I'd been struggling that whole time pretty much all by myself, trying to help myself heal, trying to find some inner peace. And I'd been making some progress, but it was very slow progress. I just, figured this was just a part of that. But it got pretty bad, the depression. To a point where I became passively suicidal. Like, actively suicidal is when you're making active plans to take your life and kill yourself. So it was never like that for me. It never got to that point. But I definitely became like suicidal. Like I had a passive suicidal ideation where, I would have thoughts of dying, and like, I would think, like, you see, it was like, I remember the biggest thing about when I was in that state of depression, the biggest thing that I remember that really impacted me, that really kind of hit me, was the sense of just no motivation, just completely lost all motivation to do anything. It was like, it felt like too much trouble to even get out of bed, to get dressed, to eat, to drink, to do pretty much anything. It all just felt like too much trouble. And I was like, what's the point of even making the effort, of going through the trouble that it takes to maintain life, to live? What do I have to live for? And I couldn't think of anything that I had to live for. And I wasn't disturbed by the recognition that I might die or that I couldn't think of anything to live for. It didn't disturb me at all. It was like, well, we all have to die anyway. So I'll die. So what? Actually, if anything, it's a good thing, because my body is like just so troublesome. It's just too much effort, too much trouble. So I'll die. So what? And pretty much the only thing that saves me from just wasting away and starving myself to death or something like that was, I was alive enough that I noticed, I saw that my family was getting really worried about me, especially my mom, to the point where, I remember her scolding me because I wouldn't eat, and I was just alive enough that, it hit my heart, and my heart, like there's something in me that said, I don't want my mom to worry. I don't want to hurt my mom. So, okay, fine. I'll eat. I'll get up. I'll do this. I'll do that. Just so my mom doesn't worry anymore. And, now, I don't know how long this might have continued, but eventually what happened was things happened. I got dragged back to the doctors. They figured out I wasn't taking my medication. I got put back on the medications. I started taking the medication again. And at some point, I started to feel better again. The depression started to lift. And I didn't immediately put two and two together and be like, oh, I fell into a depression because I wasn't taking my medication. No, that didn't happen because my doctors never told me that depression was a possible consequence of my not taking the medication. And even when I stopped taking the medication, it took several weeks, if not months, before I really started to experience the severe depressive symptoms. And even after I started taking the medication, it took several weeks, if not months, before I started to feel better in terms of like my mental, emotional state, right? Because it takes time. It just takes time with these things to for the body to readjust and to heal itself back to the point of relative normalcy, even after you start taking the medication. So for me, it wasn't an obvious connection at all, and my doctor never gave me the information that would have allowed me to make that connection. So I actually took the medication for a while, and then when I got sick and tired of those migraines again, and I couldn't bear them anymore, I just gave up my medicine again. And this time it was like, but this time when I gave up my medication, I was already in the U.S. We had moved to the U.S. I had started college. And remember how I told you, like, once I was in college, like, whoa, things got so much better for me. Like, I finally had opened up. I was getting more help and support. I was learning more about trauma and healing from trauma and how to help myself, and I was taking a lot of positive action to help myself, and things were in a real upswing. But it was like these headaches, there's just took days out of my life, and I was like, and now I actually had something to live for and look forward to on the days that I was down with these horrible headaches and these horrible migraines, and I was like, I don't want to deal with these migraines anymore. They're stopping me from living my life. So I gave up my medication again. But then this time around, luckily, again, because I actually had something to live for, when I gave up my medication, wow, the tiredness, the heaviness, the weight gain, the hair loss, the other symptoms, including the depressive symptoms, they all came back. But this time, luckily, because I had something to live for, and I knew more, I understood more about how to help myself, and so on and so forth, I was able to, it was actually able to finally figure out the connection between the depressive symptoms that I was experiencing and the taking of my medication and not. And so when I finally realized, put all this information together, I was like, oh, so it's not just that I feel more tired and stuff when I don't take my medication, but if I don't take it for long enough, I actually begin to go into this depression, and then I lose motivation, and then I don't want to, do anything, and then it's like my life might as well be over, So it's like, but now I actually have something to live for, something to look forward to in my life. So it was like, it motivated me to start taking my medication again, even though I knew it would bring the migraines back. So I started my medication again, and then I tried to like do this kind of thing where I would stop taking my medication for a while, like for a few months. But when I started to feel my condition really become significantly like the energy significantly drop, the depressive symptoms starting to come back. Like I watch myself, and then I would be like, okay, you know what? I need to start taking this stupid medication again. Time to put up with the headaches, so that I don't fall into a deeper. And for several years it went on like this, where I was just doing the best I could to balance between, making this horrible choice of either feeling really tired and depressed or dealing with these horrible migraines. And I just hate feeling pain. So that's why it was like so bad, for me, like. So, but the thing is, like, notice what are some lessons. Oh, and I should tell you, happy ending. Before I go into the lessons that we can learn from this experience of mine, the happy ending is that a few years ago, in actually 2010, we went to this health center where I was consulting with this doctor, and I'd seen many doctors, by the way, and been to many different hospitals and stuff. I've seen many different doctors, and none of them, in all the years I'd started taking my medication since I was like 16, which was, or 16 or 17, which was like, I don't know what. I can't do math, but in 2010, basically. So a good, like maybe 12 years into the process of, like, since I'd started taking my medication, some 10, 12 years later, finally I go see a doctor who was able to, like, help me figure out why I was getting these horrible migraines. And a lot of it had to do with my diet and controlling my diet and taking my medication at proper times, because I was taking my medication and I was not, like, I was just taking it hey, I will blame my doctors, because my doctors who put me on those medications in the first place, they never told me I have to take my medication at a certain time of day. They didn't. They only said, you need to take this medication on an empty stomach, preferably in the morning, before you eat breakfast. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll take it on an empty stomach before I eat breakfast. But unfortunately, that advice just wasn't specific enough, because the problem was that, normal people have breakfast at a certain time of morning, but I was a normal person. Sometimes I didn't wake up until like 11 a.m., 12 noon. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the afternoon because I'd be up all night studying or reading or whatever. I had like this very erratic sleep pattern, very erratic sleep schedule. So I would just take the medication whenever I woke up before I had any food. And I was like, oh, it turns out that was a huge part of the problem for why I was having these migraines. And none of my doctors, before I finally saw this doctor in 2010, apparently none of them thought to ask me those questions and give me that information. So, but you know what? The good news is now I don't have to make that horrible choice between either, either living with debilitating migraines or suffering, depression and low energy and stuff. Now I'm taking my medication and doing it in the proper way, so I don't get the migraines, and I'm able to maintain my health, my good health. So that's the good news. That's the happy ending. My gosh. Okay, look at the time though. I guess before I get into some of the lessons that we can learn from this experience, I should wrap up for the day, and let's pick up and talk about some of the lessons we can learn from this experience in the next episode. And for today, I will just give you a quick reminder that if you haven't already, please go on iTunes and leave this show, the Survivor to Thriver show, a 5-star rating, so that you can help other people find it more easily and enjoy it and benefit from it just as you are doing. And in the meanwhile, until I connect with you next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.